wait for people to come on. But let me just... Welcome, John. It's wonderful to have you with me. How are you doing?
I'm going excellent, thanks, Kitty.
Wonderful.
We go back quite a few years.
It's been a while that we've chatted, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yes. So let me just give a bit of introduction to my tribe in Juggling Health and Wealth. Okay, so welcome everybody to the interview series and guest chat of Juggling Health and Wealth. And today I'm very privileged, as you can see, to have my guest and Mindfulness Master. And we're going to be talking about all things mindfulness. And so hello there, for those of you who don't know me, Kitty Cheng's my name. I am a lifestyle coach and specializing in helping people to supercharge their health through nutrition, weight management, and mindset. And I help busy entrepreneurs and business owners to reach their wellness with my different types of programs, as well as supporting people reaching their total wellness and true wealth. And so today, my special guest is John Shearer, and he is the internationally recognized Australian mindfulness master and ACT therapist, hypnotherapist, and intuitive life coach. And he's also an author, speaker, and workshop facilitator. Since 2009, John has spent more than 9,000 hours studying and researching the many aspects of mindfulness. And that is a lot of hours there, John. And in 2011, John Shearer has created 2 Facebook pages. One is called Mindfulness Master, and the other is Spiritual Master. And they now have over 1 million likers. And in 2015, John founded mindfullymad.org. So MAD, M-A-D, stands for making a difference. I love that. And not only that, you know, his Mindfulness Mentoring Institute also. So John is very passionate about his purpose, which is training people to be mindfulness mentors. And his vision is world mental health without medication. And his mission is love, peace, and joy through the practice of mindfulness. So his objective is to lobby for mindfulness in schools, and his focus is prevention of mental suffering and suicide, especially in the early stages of life. So John, thank you for being with us today.
And thank you for the great introduction, boy. And
you are amazing. Even just reading that makes me realize that, wow, I've got an amazing friend just right here with me. So John, I'd like to, first of all, again, welcome you, because it's really a privilege for me to be able to chatting with you. And I remember, you know, the Mindful May event that we learned from you. And that was the very first one that I started. Do you remember that?
Oh, I sure do. It was a life-changing event.
It was, wasn't it? Yes.
Back in 2014.
2014. Oh, wow. That was 6 years ago now, hasn't it? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, the 7th one is coming up, first Sunday in May.
Yes, exactly. Wow, that's beautiful. And so
this year I'm very excited about Mindfulness Day, because
yes,
I'm launching a couple of new things, actually, but we'll talk about that shortly.
We will, yes. And so maybe just so that, you know, the people that are watching you here who might not have met you, share with us a little bit about your story and experience that led you to studying mindfulness. I mean, when I was reading your bio, you actually did more than 9,000 hours of studying in mindfulness. And of course, now you are the mindfulness master. So tell us a bit about your history and your experience.
Well, I'll just go through a bit of my journey. I'll start when I was 30 years old, which is like 37 years ago now.
Okay.
I died in a truck smash near Kilmore in Victoria. It was an accident in the fog. And I was revived at the scene, obviously, and woke up sometime later in Kilmore Hospital, which is a terrible name for a town.
Kill
kill
more.
more.
Gee,
He
yeah.
killed me. But yeah, and my life, that was a pivotal, a change in my life, that's for sure, that day. And it was actually my dad's 65th birthday as well, 9th of
Right.
June 1982.
Right.
And it didn't take long, especially after I saw photos of the wreck, because if you saw the photos, you wouldn't even give me a chance of being alive.
Mm.
And my dog was killed, and I had that near-death experience. And there was no white lights for me or anything like that, but just nothing, blackness. But I do remember coming back, and that I still don't have words for. It was just so, it was like I was coming from another galaxy.
Wow.
So slow, so peaceful, almost like I was floating in space somehow.
Wow.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. But anyhow, I came back, and I was pretty smashed up with physical injuries, and I needed operations and things. But it was later that year I got diagnosed with mental illness after I had a psychotic episode.
Right.
Then that started 15 years, and I spent time in mental health units. I was severely depressed at one stage, very suicidal.
Mm.
I was given ECT shock treatment another
Right.
time, a series of them, and I was on a smorgasbord of medications. 15 years I was
Mm.
trapped in the system.
Wow.
So, and this is still happening today. So by 1997, I was pretty much rock bottom, and mental health professionals told me that I'd never be cured. What I had was incurable. They told me that I would never work again, and I'd have to be on medication for the rest of my life.
Wow.
And I believed them. We've got to be so careful what we believe.
Yes.
Yeah, and that kept me stuck, and I was basically pensioned off at that time.
Yeah.
And that's when, on what turned out to be World Mental Health Day, coincidentally,
Oh,
or
yes.
not,
Mm-hmm.
an old friend of mine who I hadn't seen for nearly 20 years before my accident, he left Wagga Wagga, that's where I was living,
Yeah.
and he was passing through town, and he had what he called a spiritual prompt to come and knock on my door and
Right.
tell me his story. And 2
Mm.
days later, I had what I can only describe as a spiritual awakening. And that was enough to, once again, my life changed direction. You know, we have pivotal dates in history. We all do, I believe,
Yes.
where our life changes direction totally.
Yeah.
And that was another one, 10/10 in 1997. So that was the newfound knowledge I had that, quite simply, there's a light and a dark, or love and fear, just keeping it very simple because I love simplicity.
Sure.
But that was enough for me to get my life back.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. And so I started selling pool tables, and then my wife and I opened a Q Sports Centre in the main street of Wagga. We had 16 pool tables in a jukebox, and we did that for 6 years.
Yeah.
And then that brings us forward to 2009. And through that time, I was still having difficult, unhelpful, negative thoughts like we all do,
Yeah.
but I could handle it with that newfound belief system that I had, light and dark.
Wow.
Because I would say to myself, well, that's a dark thought. That comes from the dark side. I'm not going
Mm.
to take any notice of that one. You know, I prefer to focus on the light. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll go there. Great. Well, 2009 came along, and the year before that, actually, I lost a friend to an asthma attack. And my wife, she uses Maureen, who you have met actually, and she uses a nebulizer to start a day, especially in winter. So she had the same asthma problem. Well, my friend died from an asthma attack, and he was the same age as me at the time.
Mm.
So then I thought, well, I've got to get my wife out of this climate. Wagga Wagga, it gets all the pollens and dust across the Hay Plains from Adelaide.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that's why it's the asthma capital of Australia. There's more asthmatics in Wagga than anywhere else per capita.
Is that right? Wow. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Oh,
So we hatched the plan to move north.
Yeah.
Yeah, to where we are now, Grafton.
Mm.
So early in 2009, I started to think, well, what am I going to do when we get to Grafton?
Yeah.
So through my dark years, and that's what I call them, because those 15 dark years,
15 dark
uh,
years.
I call them dark years because I was blind to the truth. I didn't know what was going on until I stepped into the light, of course, and woke up. Yeah.
Right.
So early in 2009, I started surfing the internet to find out what the latest things were in mental health,
Yeah.
the latest therapies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So through my dark years, I wasn't always unwell. There was times when I was well, and I really felt like there was a calling on my life
Yeah.
somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So I got trained as a counsellor with the Smith family first, and then I did a course, a front wheel, where you take the steering wheel of your life, front wheel counselling, and then I did a youth counselling course.
Yeah.
So I was a trained counsellor.
Right.
So I thought, well, that's what I want to do. That's where my heart is, helping people that might be in a similar situation to myself.
Yeah.
So in 2009, I surfed the internet and I found a book by an Australian doctor, Dr. Russ Harris,
Right.
and it's called The Happiness Trap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a wonderful book about ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. It stands for ACT therapy, which is, I believe, the most modern, simplest, mindfulness-based therapy out there. So I read the book and I fell in love with mindfulness
Yes.
because, it's a mindfulness-based therapy,
Yeah.
a very simple therapy, easy to explain to, but it was mindfulness. I started my own mindful practice then, early in 2009,
Fantastic.
and that put me up a level, if you like, in
Yes.
where I was at,
Yeah,
because
for sure.
those unhelpful and negative thoughts I
Mm.
was having, that we all have,
Yes.
well, once I started practicing mindfulness, they took a back seat. They really they stopped showing up altogether eventually. It took a while, of course, because
Right.
mindfulness is something that you need to practice,
Of course. Yes. Definitely.
like anything. If you want to be good at something, practice. Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of, what
Yeah.
really started me in 2009. So in August that year, we moved up to Grafton,
Yeah.
and then I actually got a job with juvenile justice. I started in November as a mentor, and they wanted me full time, but I said no. I'm happy to do part time, and so I did, and I mostly did permanent afternoon shifts
Right.
because boys in juvenile justice, there's actually a school in there, and they go to school, so the afternoon shift was a better opportunity for me to spend time with them as
Okay.
well, which was really good.
Yes.
And I started my business, Mindfulness Coach. That's what it's called,
Yes.
Mindfulness Coach. Because I made up my mind that I didn't want to be a counsellor, because to me, anyhow, the term even counselling sort of infers there's something wrong.
Mm.
But the truth is, people just get stuck with their thoughts. They ruminate on their
Thinking
thoughts.
about their wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and our thoughts can be our best friend or our worst enemy. There's
Sure.
no doubt about that. Yeah. So, and once people once they learn a technique of changing all that, or being aware of their thoughts, and that's what mindfulness is really about, then, and noticing them and not doing anything with them, they lose their power. All those unhelpful and negative thoughts, they lose their power, and they just don't show up as much. And then eventually they don't really show up at all. And it's a beautiful thing. So that's sort of my journey that got me started into mindfulness. And later that year, in 2009, I went to Canberra, and Dr. Russ Harris trained me to be an ACT therapist,
Yeah.
which is wonderful.
That's awesome.
ACT therapy, and I'll explain it. It's just also a simple therapy. We accept ourselves. That's the acceptance part of it.
Sure.
No matter how good or bad our situation is, or where we're at in life, we accept it. That's the first huge step, and that's even the first step in AA programs and all sorts of addiction programs. They're all similar. The first step is acceptance. Accept we have a problem. Accept we need help. Accept we can't do it alone.
Yes.
all those sorts of things. Acceptance. Because without acceptance, there's really no way forward. We're stuck.
Yes.
Yeah. And the commitment part of ACT therapy, and it's a mindfulness-based therapy, of course, the commitment part is to act on our values.
Act on our values. Ah, yes.
We learn values and memorize 4 or 5 different values.
Yep.
And one way I did that many, many years ago, I imagined myself at my own funeral. There I was, laying in the casket, and there were my loved ones. And then I imagine, and your listeners can try this later, imagine your loved ones standing there.
Right.
Then imagine what you would like them to be saying about you. So, and that helps work out what your values are.
Fantastic.
There's other ways as well. So when I did this, I imagined my kids standing there and they were saying, Dad always had time for us. So that became a value for me.
Yes.
So then when the unhelpful or negative thought showed up, then I would practice mindfulness, be mindful, pause, connect, and then go to a value. If I went to that one, then I would make a plan to take them down the river or on a picnic that weekend or whatever.
Yes.
So you see what happens, and what you're doing actually is retraining your mind from the negative to the positive.
That's so good.
So when the negative or unhelpful shows up, we practice mindfulness, be mindful, pause, connect. And that's how I've simplified 9,000 hours of study into mindfulness, by the way, and I'll explain that shortly.
Sure.
Be mindful, pause, connect.
And connect, yes.
And if you Google that, you'll find me. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. That's right.
That's the practice. Yeah.
I really
then
like that.
we go to a value and make an action plan, and we follow through with the plan as well. That's important.
That's very
so when we do that over and over and over, we're actually making new pathways in our minds, and we recover and we improve, and eventually we awaken and become enlightened even. So that's the practice. It's a simple one.
Yep. So that's a 3-step process, I guess, yeah? First, be mindful. Second, pause. Third, connect. Maybe you can share with us a little bit, how it's done practically.
I would love to. When we notice the unhelpful or negative thought, or we just notice our mind elsewhere,
sure.
In other words, when our thoughts take us away from our body, then, and it's all about noticing mindfulness. And when we notice that, what our mind's doing, then we use the instruction, be mindful. And the instruction comes from our heart. Okay. And I can honestly share with you, from 1997, my time of awakening, and when my friend knocked on my door and told me his story, and then he suggested I go to a house on the other side of town on Sunday, 2 days later, and because they were having a meeting there. And I said, sure, I'll go. Right. Yeah. And then he kept going, and I haven't been able to find him ever since. He has no idea what he did that day.
Wow.
Sharing his story with me.
Yes.
That's why I love sharing my story, and I encourage people to share their stories because it inspires people.
Yes.
It really does. Yeah. So anyhow, 2 days later, I went to this meeting on the other side of town, and what I found there was a visiting elder, he called himself, from Albury, which is about 140 kilometres from Wagga Wagga.
Okay.
And I found him there, and he had a couple of musicians with him, and there was a small group of people as well, and they were having a Christian meeting. And I really wasn't, religious at all at that stage, or even spiritual. So anyhow, they had this meeting inside, and they played some music, sang some songs, and it was all wonderful. And they did some praise and worship and what have you. And then after this visiting elder, he said to me, John, would you like to be baptized?
Oh.
What? Sure. I was rock bottom then, I said, I'm on the road to nowhere, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
I've tried everything else.
Wow.
So it turned out he carried a portable baptismal tank in the boot of his car. Yeah. So he brought it in and they set it up in the backyard. I'm glad it was October, not too cold.
Mm-hmm.
And I stripped down and got into this tank, and it was big enough to fully immerse me. And I'm like 6'2". I'm a
Yes.
big guy. Yeah. So he baptized me. And
Wow.
you know, when I came up out of the water, when he
Mm.
says, "Do you take Jesus to be, you know, blah blah,"
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
baptismal, full immersion. But when I come up out of the water, I was praying in tongues.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You
Straight
may
up.
have heard of that,
Yeah.
but it's an ancient, I've researched it since, it's an ancient method really of communicating with spirit.
Yes.
And tongues comes from the heart. There's no mind in it.
Mm-hmm.
It actually feels quite tribal.
Yes.
And I've been praying that way ever since, by the way.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Because of that tribal feeling, and it's from the heart and no mind in it.
Right.
It's an excellent way of connecting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, I undertook a 4-year Bible study from then, from 97 to 2001. Very intensive Bible study,
Yes.
which
Wow.
I really value, because when we read that book, or any book really, for that matter,
Yeah.
Spirit speaks to us. We have aha moments, and you know, we learn things, and it was a beautiful thing. But two main things I learned from those years of Bible study
Mm-hmm.
was Jesus' message of love, of course.
Oh, yes.
Love your neighbour as yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably the major message of the book.
Yep.
It's a big book. And the other very important thing was God reads hearts. I'll repeat that. God reads hearts.
God reads hearts. Our
Not
heart.
minds,
Not
hearts.
mind, but the heart. Oh, wow.
And,
Yes.
and that's why that lines up with a lot of different theories around the globe that have been made on setting your intention.
Yes.
So when we set our heart intention
Yeah.
for others,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
help our family, our community, the world, whatever, then God, the universe, starts moving the furniture for us.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I totally agree with that. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so God reads hearts. That was the other major thing. So from that time of my awakening in 1997, 4 years Bible study, and then God showed me the big picture, which was really that God is way bigger than any religion.
Yes, amen. Yes, amen. Yes.
So I now call that my apprenticeship into spirituality.
Your apprenticeship. Oh, wow. Yes.
And now, getting back to be mindful, pause, connect. We use be mindful as a key thought.
Yeah.
And it's from the heart,
Mm-hmm.
to the mind.
Yeah.
So when we notice that unhelpful or difficult thought, from our heart, we say, be mindful.
Be mindful, yes.
We tell ourselves, be mindful.
Mm.
Instruction to, and then we allow that to trigger a pause. And it only takes a few seconds. We pause our mind, silence our mind for a few seconds. And in that pause, we connect. And we connect in 3 different ways. We connect with where we are. Take a look around now.
Where we are.
Doesn't matter where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you look at started with a thought.
Yeah.
We connect, and we use our 5 senses to do that. Our sight, hearing, our touch, smell, taste, whatever. It doesn't matter what we're doing, where we are. We connect that way. We also connect with who we're with full presence. Like right now, you're very good. You're fully present with me when I'm talking. And when you're talking, I'm fully present with you. And we have a connection.
Yes, for sure.
And full presence means not having an agenda, not thinking about what to say next, just being present. It's the greatest gift we can give our loved ones, that's for sure. Our presence.
Very good.
There. And the third part of the connection is connecting with our source energy, whatever you believe that to be.
Sure.
Connect. And in that pause, when we silence our minds and we connect that way, where we are, who we're with, and with our source, what happens is you're actually opening the doorways of creativity, and you're turning your intuition on. And it's a very important thing, intuition, very helpful.
Yeah.
So be mindful And we only need to use that instruction until it becomes habit, because after a while, if you do this throughout your day, for a while, make a point of it, just pausing and connecting and using that key thought. But after a while, it becomes automatic and we just pause and connect.
Wow.
No matter what or when, even if we're talking with someone, we can pause our mind and connect. And I often say the power of mindfulness is in the silence between our thoughts.
Yes.
And the more silence we can create throughout our day, the more power to us.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really, really meaningful, to connect with the environment, to the person that you're talking to, and to the source. This is really, really powerful. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. This is golden, John. So I'd like to ask you, how you were talking about practicing mindfulness actually can create love, peace, and joy. I think you already alluded to it, yeah? As we, have the silence, then it actually can help us really create the positive and wonderful emotions like love, peace, and joy.
Absolutely. There was a time, especially through my 15 dark years, and a lot of people are going through this right now. They are.
Yes.
And I had a mind like a drunken monkey all over the place, 100 miles an hour, because our thoughts are like a radio station, and they're meant to be, transmitting 24/7, blah, 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 blah. And even Christians, they pray, but they don't necessarily pause their minds and listen. And when we start doing that, and that's mindfulness, when we start doing that, when we pause and listen, and not with our ears, but deep listening, then we start to receive. And it's an amazing thing. And what people will notice when they start their practice, or when they get into their practice, that pause and what drops into their mind, things like we might have 500 things to do, busy, lots to do. But when you be mindful, pause, connect,
Yes.
then the highest priority thing, the next step, will drop into our mind.
Wow.
So we don't have to stress about it. And we should never multitask either, because that just causes stress. We can only do one thing. So what is that thing? And that's the way to access it. So when we do this, our life becomes kind of orderly and prioritized. Yeah, try it. Don't take my word for it.
Really a great reminder for me, John. Thank you so much, because I tend to sometimes get stressed when things don't happen the way that I want it to be. So I think this is so good. Whenever I feel like, okay, these things is happening that are causing me to be stressed, then I use these 3 commands, like be mindful, pause, and connect. I love that. And also knowing that will actually create that peace, that joy, and that silence. And that's why I love what you were sharing with me before we actually started this chat, that you are using this time to look at it as a retreat rather than isolation or distancing. Maybe speak to that. Why you think that is this a retreat? I'm sure that a lot of people that are watching right now, maybe, as you mentioned, going through a bit of tough times, but we can actually look at this as a retreat to be able to create that awareness and that love as well.
Yes, so I much prefer to see it as a retreat rather than isolation.
Yes.
That kind of has negative overtones to it.
Sure.
And it's like social distancing.
Yes.
I would have loved it, whoever started or coined that phrase in the beginning, I don't know who, I wish it was physical distancing.
Yes.
Because I really believe that we're more, well, I know, speaking for myself, we're more socially connected than we were before.
I agree.
I've never done so many Zoom podcasts and talks as what I've done, in the last few weeks. It's been quite amazing. And I'm sure people are phoning their family and phoning their friends and and they've got more time to reflect on themselves. And this is a great opportunity to practice mindfulness.
That's right.
And there's a couple of things about mindfulness, because there's a lot of misapprehension out there about mindfulness. Some people believe it's meditation, for example. But meditation, when we meditate, sure, we're practicing mindfulness, no question about that. And it's a beautiful thing to do. But we make time to meditate. But with mindfulness, well, we practice all the time.
Yes.
It's not something we make time to do. We practice all the time, or eventually we do. And it takes over every part of our life. It becomes almost, it's an art. It's, whether it's in sport or whatever we're doing. And the beautiful thing about mindfulness is it's non-religious.
Yes.
And it's non-religious because when people follow a religion, for example, they follow someone's teaching and they're all doing the same thing, the same practice, the same whatever. But with mindfulness, we all practice in our own unique ways. And there's probably a million different ways. Anything that takes our full focus and we're in the moment, and our mind is where our body is,
yes,
that's a mindful thing to do. And that could be art, music, writing, riding your bike, walking,
anything at all,
doing the dishes, in the shower, whatever. It doesn't matter what we're doing. We can do it more mindfully. And the original definition of mindful, and this is worth mentioning, mind, the original meaning of mind isn't brain, because they're different as well.
Sure.
Our brain has a function that allows us to dance and do all sorts of wonderful things without thinking.
Right.
And our brain, it keeps our body operating, our heart pumping, and all sorts of things. And we're not thinking about that. But the mind is a different beast.
Yes.
And I don't altogether agree with science, because science will have us believe that it's full of billions of neural pathways and all this stuff, and everything's in there.
Yes.
But I don't subscribe to that. I really see the mind as a receptor.
A receptor, okay.
A receptor.
Yeah.
When we start to see that, then, it makes a bit of sense. Yeah.
Yes.
Just be curious, which is a very important aspect of mindfulness, curiosity. Then be curious about where your thoughts are coming from. Yeah. And of course, we can use our mind to work things out too. It's a great tool. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And I like the fact that as you're actually going through it, the day by day, moment by moment, activities, you are practicing mindfulness. It's not like you are meditating, taking time out to do it alone, but anything that we're doing. I love that idea.
Yeah, because when we set our intention, I'll get back to intention because it's very important.
Yes.
When we set our intention on others, and that, especially in relationships,
sure.
Because I do a bit of relationship, I won't say counselling, but mentoring,
yes.
or coaching, and relationships mostly fail because one or the other is focused on themselves. And honestly, it doesn't work.
No.
You set yourself up to fail. But when you focus on the other, I'll take my wife, Maureen, for example. I live for her,
sure,
and she lives for me.
Yes.
And when you look at what love is, then I really believe love is deep respect.
Yeah.
Because when you love someone, you have deep respect for them.
Yes.
And you accept them. There's that word again, accept.
Accept.
And when you accept them for who they are, without wishing they were different,
sure,
then they have the freedom to fully express themselves and do whatever. And when you receive the same back, well, you have a relationship that's going to go to your graves, until death do us part. No doubt about it. So, you get where I'm going with that one.
Definitely. Yeah, accept and commit to our relationship. So it's even the act therapy, includes the two things that are so important in our relationship. Yeah, we accept, respect one another, but we also commit to our relationship. I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So anyhow, put it on a sticky note. This is what I'm advising your listeners, and not that mentors or coaches give advice. That's a bit of a trap. We should never give advice, but we do become very good at giving people a different perspective.
definitely.
So write it on a sticky note, put it on your mirror and lipstick or whatever to remind yourself.
Yes.
Because the hardest thing for me to do back in 2009 was to remember to practice. I love mindfulness, the whole idea of mindfulness, but I would go, 4 or 5 days and then I go, oh yeah, mindfulness, that's right, and then, I'd remember it again, bring my mind back to the present moment. And when we start doing that, bringing our mind back to now, back to where our body is over and over and over, then it becomes a habit, a really good habit too. So write it down, be mindful, pause, connect. That's the practice. And that's how I've simplified 9,000 hours down to that.
That is amazing. Wow. Thank you, John. Really, really appreciate you sharing with us and having a chat with us today. And last but not least, I know that this year, as you already mentioned earlier on, that is going to be the 7th annual Mindfulness Day on the first Sunday of May, which is the 3rd of May, right? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's going to be happening on that online event, and then we can actually put a link in our Facebook group so that others can actually participate if they choose to.
If people go to mindfullymad.org, Mindfulness Day, they'll find a tab in there called Mindfulness Day. Click on that, and then they can read what's happening and what I'm planning. But I'll just say right now, what I am planning to do this year is from 3rd of May to 10th of May, that's 8 days, 2 Sundays, and all through the week, I'm going to have a Zoom like this.
Yes.
And it'll be up to 100 people can get into my Zoom, whatever. And 9 a.m. Australia time each day, and 7 p.m. in Australia time once again. That's sure. Eastern Australia, Sydney time.
Yep.
At night, and I'm going to do it twice a day, and the reason is because UK and Europe and even Western Australia, well, not 7 p.m. Okay, yes. Because of the time zone differences.
Of course.
And the 9 a.m. is great for Australia and for USA and Canada, because also in mindfullymad.org, there's a page called Find a Mindfulness Mentor, and you're listed there, of course.
I'm in there, yes.
Yep. And when you look at the tabs, there's a lot of countries around the world now who, with mentors that I've ever trained or they've joined in my vision,
sure.
and have made the commitment to make a difference in this crazy world. So there's lots and lots of mentors in there that you can find a mindfulness mentor.
Yes.
And and I'm going to be inviting all the mentors from Mindfully Mad to these Zoom events to join in with whatever.
I'm there.
You'll be there for one or more if you want. And I'll be inviting, I'm going to be running them like a yarning circle.
Oh, yes. I
type
love that.
thing. And I want people to join me and everybody to speak their mind, share what they believe mindfulness is or how mindfulness has changed. They can tell a little bit of their story or ask questions, or just join in and listen and learn, because you sure will. So that's some, and a couple of things I'm going to be launching. One is a parenting. I've decided now, because for many years I've been lobbying government for mindfulness in schools.
Yeah.
And I've been friends for many years with a guy in UK.
Mm-hmm.
He started what's called, you can Google this too, the mindfulness, or go to the links on mindfullymad.org.
Okay.
Follow the links, and you'll see one to Mindfulness Initiative.
Okay.
In UK. And what they did in UK, this guy, he took it into the parliament and he started inviting parliamentarians to his mindfulness circle, to a meditation circle it was, and they were practicing meditation and mindfulness. And then over many years, it took many years, things don't happen in a hurry, especially in politics.
Yeah, especially. Yeah.
But the circle built up, and finally, before 2 Christmases ago, an exciting thing happened in the UK, and the Parliament passed it for mindfulness to be compulsory in 330 primary schools in Great Britain.
Wow,
Beautiful.
that's wonderful.
And Victoria, where you are leading the way in Australia, because mindfulness is starting to be in the schools down there, and other places in Australia too, but mainly it's on a teacher-to-teacher basis.
Okay.
But we'll get there. But also in UK, they made mindfulness sort of compulsory in the military, the police, and in health, nurses, doctors, SES, anyone working out the coalface, in other words.
Yes.
They've recommended that mindfulness be part of their training so that they have the skills, because mindfulness, when we practice mindfulness for a while, we learn to step back and observe our thoughts rather than getting all caught up in them, for one thing. But also, when it doesn't matter what's in our face, what people are saying or doing or what's going on, we learn to pause. That's the practice once again. Pause and connect.
Connect.
And that way we don't react to things. We respond.
Respond rather
Because
than
out of that silence we create, that few second silence, something intelligent or wise will drop into our minds. Yeah. And then we end up with both peace of mind and clarity of mind, no matter what's happening. And that is what I call mentally healthy.
That's right. Responding rather than reacting. So
and our
many
health
people
is our greatest wealth, as you always say.
Because, yeah, that's right. Your health is your greatest wealth. Really, your first health is your wealth. I mean, if your first wealth is your health, if we don't have health, including our mental health, then doesn't matter how much money or financial resources we have, is still nothing. And I love the idea that if we can actually practice it and to be able to really pause and connect, then we'll be able to respond rather than react. Because I've seen time and time again, even a lot of the students that I'm coaching right now, they may have been stood down because of the situation of the pandemic, or that they have financial crisis or relationship problems. They tend to react. When they react, then they get stressed and they get to this negative emotional turmoil. So mindfulness definitely is something that we all need to learn and practice. So I would love all the listeners that are watching this, all the participants on our YouTube video and the Facebook group as well, to actually attend, the 7th annual Mindful Day every single day, 9 o'clock and 7 o'clock Australia Eastern Standard Time. So we're going to be sharing the details for you, and I hope that you will join us. And John, I'm going to be part of that. Count me in.
Excellent.
All right, thank you so very, very much for your time today, and really, really appreciate you.
It's a pleasure. Okay. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye now. Take care.